Hi all, this is Spassky versus Fischer, game 11 of the classic 1972 match. Spassky managed to win this game, and we're going to see how and why. Spassky playing white, he played e4, and Fischer played his favourite Sicilian defence, in fact the Najdorf defence. And in particular, we have here, after bishop g5, e6 and f4, we have here the poison pawn variation. It's called the poison pawn because this b2 pawn is offered as the poison, and black's queen might have trouble getting back to a good position afterwards. In this game there was a fantastic novelty launched by Spassky. So the pawn was taken, and after instead of rook b1, Spassky played the knight retreat, knight b3, which is a viable alternative, so protecting that rook on a1. Often you see rook b1 as well as another alternative move. Now Fischer played queen a3, and Spassky immediately took on f6, damaging black's pawn structure, but he is a pawn down, and after bishop e2 we see that it is a kind of controversial position for black, with not many pieces developed, but Fischer was an expert in this line and had usually won all his games in this variation up until this game. He plays now h5, so that's automatically developing that rook on h8, stretching it, and in some variations this pawn is going to be very dangerous, especially because if this pawn later moves when white's castled kingside, this bishop here can be dangerous on the diagonal when it comes to b7 and is pointing down this diagonal. So black's position is also quite solid in the centre, so it's not as bad as it looks just because black's pieces are not very well developed. So Spassky castles, and then we see knight c6, and after king h1, bishop d7. So Fischer had adopted a different plan to this b5. His bishop might come to c6 later, but first this knight might reroute later to e7. But in this position, Spassky he innovates from an earlier game in the match by playing a novelty now. He plays knight b1. And the idea is that after queen b4, where black would be happy with the exchange of queens, Spassky just played queen e3, and he's actually going for a lot of central pressure here, and also to harass black's queen. Black's queen has no easy way to come back. Fischer played d5, and white might be clearly better now. Black's in a bad state because of this central pressure. Spassky simply plays e takes d5, and after knight e7, the knight is usefully coming to f5, where it might coordinate with h4 and even knight g3 check to make use of this rook. But after c4, knight f5, queen d3, black's position is very difficult here. There is still a lot of pressure, and maybe Fischer loosened his position more by playing h4. He lost control of this g4 square, so Spassky pounced on that, and that also renders knight g3 ideas less effective because the bishop can now retreat to h3 in many variations. So white's just clearly better now, and it is not material down anymore either. So he's got a lot of central pressure on black's position. So he plays knight d2 now, knight b1 to d2, and after f5 he just goes to trap black's queen, a3, and the queen's running out of squares, and now c5. And also notice this unprotected rook on h8. This is an absolutely dire position for Fischer. So after queen b5, Spassky just played the crushing queen c3. So he's attacking this Ampri rook on h8, but he's also threatening a4 just to trap the black queen. So the poison pawn has definitely been poisoned in this game. Fischer plays f takes g4 and then a4. So here he could have perhaps played queen takes f1, but it's still very bad for black. It's still lost. What he did play was actually h3, just letting his queen be taken by the pawn. And after a takes b5, h takes g2, at least he's opened the h-file, but it's a completely busted position though. This isn't enough counterplay just to play rook h3, and even if the knight comes in to help that rook. And Spassky continues his assault on black's centre and king, which is trapped in the centre, with this c6. And now d takes e6, rook fe1, it's all over. after bishop e7, Spassky now just crashed through with rook takes e6. So that was a devastating loss from Fischer, playing his favourite Najdorf. It's a classic game. Let's have a quick conclusion and summary from it. So it's a Sicilian Najdorf with the poison pawn variation being played. So this pawn sacrifice on b2. Now instead of the usual rook b1, which is often seen in modern games, Spassky played knight b3, and then after queen a3, Spassky took on f6, and now bishop e2, h5, which might have ideas later of coordinating the bishop and rook, but Spassky simply castled into it, not minding about this h-pawn. And now he played the novelty soon, sorry, king h1 now, and now the novelty, knight b1. So this classic knight retreat, with the idea of trying to trap black's queen. And black's position just fell to pieces, so Fischer wasn't prepared at all for this variation. And we see now black's queen just trapped. Let's have a quick look at this variation with queen takes f1 here. So if queen takes f1, just rook takes f1, and black's still got a completely lost position. So this rook has to move, or something has to be done about that. Now c takes d6, you see, and white's still, according to my analytical assistant, nearly 4 units up. It does seem a crushing position, both materially and positionally, with black not even having the h-file. So this was a disaster, and showed that Spassky, you know, was a very dangerous player and was capable of beating Fischer. And this added interest to the match, that it wasn't just a one-sided match. So I hope you've enjoyed this game, and maybe you can use this innovation yourself, this knight b1, for an unprepared opponent. And thanks for listening. See you on YouTube.